And it's snowing again here in New York. And that's quite alright, because I'm here in my warm car. In this video, I want to talk about how to guard your energy against energy vampires. Now, who is an energy vampire, first of all? It is anyone who is trying to feed on your negative emotions. Now, it's really a long topic, really long conversation on who it is, this type of a person who happens to be an energy vampire. But I'll give you an example. Just give you an example. Someone who is an energy vampire is someone you tend to care about, which means that your personal boundary is somewhat open to that person, whether your relationship with that person is mostly positive or mostly negative. And that person sends you some kind of a negative impulse and you respond to it negatively. Now you're losing energy. For example, let's say, okay, I'll give you an example from my personal life. So several years ago, I started a business, and at first it was very hard for me to get a new client. And when I finally got a client, it was actually a very good client, meaning a client who paid well, and that was, that was exactly what I needed at the time. One really good client, and I got him. I enrolled that client, and I was working with them, really serving that client very well. And I was talking to my father, and I don't remember how exactly the conversation went, but I remember him saying, well, you were lucky. In fact, that's not exactly how it happened. How it happened was, I said, well, luckily, in the conversation, I said, luckily, I got this client. And he said, yeah, in fact, that was luck. You were just lucky. Now, of course, the reality was that I had been trying to get that client to get my first client in that brand new business for a long time. Probably about 6 months or so, maybe about 5 months. So it took me a long time, relatively, right? But I did it. I made it happen. I got that client, and was it luck? It wasn't luck. It was work. Now, it was work. It was a very interesting way in which I got that client, but it doesn't really matter. What matters is I had been trying for a while, and then boom, it happened. And when that happened, what does my father say? He concurs with me. He says, oh yeah, exactly, that was luck. You lucked out. You were lucky. So what does that imply? What does that imply? That implies that unless there had been luck, I would have never been able to get that client. So what does that imply? The underlying implication is that, well, that probably means that you're really not that good at anything, or at least at getting clients, because whenever you're getting clients, that's just luck. Doesn't matter. It's okay. So, our parents can be toxic sometimes. I'm not exactly talking about just parents. I'm talking about any toxic person in your life. Now, if you meet someone toxic on the street and he sends something your way that is negative, and you really react to it in a really negative way, oh, that means that your boundary is really soft, and you really have holes in your boundary. So let's talk about boundaries for just a minute, real briefly, although that is a vast topic in itself. Boundaries. Every human being has a boundary. Now, a boundary is just like a border of a country, or it is also like a boundary of it's like a membrane of a cell, of a human cell, of a cell of any living being. Because any living being has cells, consists of cells. Even like a single cellular organism consists of a cell. So what does a cell do? What does that membrane of a cell, right? That membrane of a cell, what does it do? Well, they call it a semi-permeable membrane, or a semi-permeable membrane. Meaning, what does that mean? Can it be penetrated? Yes, it can. The stuff can go through it. But here's how it works. A well-functioning semi-permeable membrane in a cell, what it does is it allows good stuff to come in, it prevents bad stuff from coming in, and it allows the bad stuff to come out, meaning toxins to come out. This way, this membrane allows the cell to survive, because if it didn't function that way, the cell would die. The same way is our personal boundaries work exactly the same way, except we as human beings psychologically strengthen or weaken our boundaries. Some people are easily triggered like this. You throw a wrong look at them and they go berserk. Others, they couldn't care less. But that also doesn't mean that their boundary is very good, but maybe their boundary is completely closed, meaning that the bad stuff cannot come in, but the good stuff cannot come in either. So you come to him and say, oh, this is wonderful business opportunity, couldn't care less. You tell him, oh, you're an asshole. Doesn't matter. So nothing matters to that kind of a boundary. So it's not a healthy boundary either. But here's how you guard against it. If someone consistently gets under your skin, and parents are excellent at that, as you probably know. Okay, someone said, I think it was Ram Dass, a spiritual teacher, and I'm quoting actually Eckhart Tolle, quoting him, saying that you think you're so enlightened, go spend 2 weeks with your parents. So it can happen, and in one way or another, your parents or someone else in your life who is important to you, whom you love perhaps, can be that way sometimes. Because why? Because that person knows that he can pull some strings. He can pull your strings a little bit. You see? He can get under your skin. So what does that mean, to get under your skin? It means to penetrate your boundary in a negative way, with some negativity. So how do you protect yourself from that? How do you protect your emotional and mental energy, even physical energy as well? Because energy is one of your most important resources. When you're starting a business, when you're in the startup mode, or in any situation where your energy is required, you better guard that energy from leaking out, because you need it for your life. You need it for survival and for thriving as well. So what do you do? If someone consistently gets under your skin, here's what you do. You thicken your boundary. It doesn't mean that you close it up completely, and it doesn't mean that you say no to this person for the rest of your life. No, that is not necessary. What you do is you make your boundary thicker so that it's much harder to penetrate it, or at least for that person, or for anyone else. If you do it for one person, you will notice that others cannot do that either. So what does it mean to thicken your boundary? To thicken your boundary essentially means, and I learned this stuff from Dr. Paul Dobransky. Just paying attribution here to the person that I've learned it from, a brilliant American psychologist. So to thicken your boundary essentially means to begin saying no in more situations than you used to before. When a person is coming in with any kind of request or something that they want you to react to, you say no. You get into a situation where a situation that is pregnant with that kind of a energy vampire activity. For example, someone asks you to help them do something. You don't really have to help them do something, and you know that when you help them, they, for some reason, instead of thanking you, they criticize you. Now that's a very, very unhealthy situation. How do you guard against that? Say no to helping them. Let them seek help elsewhere. Don't help them. It's okay. It'll be fine. Let them appreciate you and your help. How do you teach them? How do you teach them to appreciate you? You say no to them. The next time they ask you to do something for them, the next time they want your energy or your approval or your time, you say, no, actually, I'm not gonna know. I'm just busy. I have things to do. Not interested in helping you. It's okay. You can do that. And that's how you guard. That's just one of the ways, just an example of how you do it. But essentially, thickening your boundary, making it a little bit tighter, making it harder to penetrate for anyone, is increasing your ability to say no in any given situation. Now, it could be a no to a request, or it could be a no to someone just throwing something negative at you. And you say, you know what, I don't want to hear it. You could just remove yourself from that situation, or there are other ways to deal with it. But what I'm trying to tell you here is that you absolutely, 100% definitely have the right to say no to a situation in which you don't want to be. The situation in which you are being treated unfairly, or where there's a possibility of losing energy without an adequate return, just wasting it. Don't waste it. Just say no. You're welcome.